Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Development Hell podcast. And the movie club has reconvened, and we're in Bat Country, hopped up on all the drugs you could possibly find and shove into a briefcase. And we're here to talk about Terry Gilliam's adaptation of Hunter S. Thompson's book. It's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And it's Joe, it's Jim, and I here, just the three of us this time, to tell you all about our feelings about this wild ride, to say the least. And have a special guest, Hunter S. Thompson himself.
I don't know who this hunter is. My name is Raul Duke. I'm here on some very important business, but in the meantime, I need to fight off these lizards all over the place.
Lizards, lizard people.
Lizard
Um,
people.
but this film is hard to describe. An oddball journalist and his psychopathic lawyer travel to Las Vegas for a series of psychedelic escapades. Um, I guess that's about as clear of a synopsis that you can give this movie. And we'll go around, give our general thoughts, how many times we've seen the film, and I also have one extra question. What's your experience with Terry Gilliam films? So let's start with you, Mr. Hunter S. Thompson, aka Joe T. Um,
Well, well, listen, I'm not going to do the voice. I'm not going to do the
okay.
impression. I will go crazy if I did the impression the whole
The
time.
whole time.
The whole time, that would be too much method acting. I'm not like Johnny Depp. I don't do that. Um, but I mean, as far as my experience with this film, to answer your question, my experience with this movie is that this is the first time I watched it all the way through, uh,
Okay.
because I could never stand watching it, or I could never follow watching it the last two times, and I was just easily distracted. It was really hard for me to really focus on it, and it was really the third time I really think was the charm, and I think also owes itself to the fact that I've been watching more of Terry Gilliam's movies.
Hmm.
Up to this point, I would say I haven't watched his whole filmography, but I've seen Brazil. I've seen 12 Monkeys. I love The Fisher King, which, a little known fact, is the movie that was a blockbuster the week of my birthday. So for me, it is almost like kind of just like a nice movie for me to always go back on. And I think it has a great message on mental health, which is
Mhm.
to say, I think The Fisher King, including Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, or to a certain degree, not so much Fear and Loathing, maybe his most sane movie, most focused movie, and one that is not nearly as dark and depressing in its overtones. There's depressing material in it, don't get me wrong, but it's also more focused and not nearly as cynical, because most of his movies has this cynical edge to it, which I think comes a lot from his Monty Python, animations and his work with the Monty Python troupe. The first time I saw a poster for this movie in like a Sam Goodies or it had to be a Suncoast theater, Suncoast store, and it was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, because it was the first time I've seen a face look like that it was melting. It was also around the
Hmm.
time the Soundgarden music video for Black Hole Sun came out, and I saw this poster really capture that like melted face, ink drops, and like that visual style is the reason why I've always wanted to appreciate this movie, because Ralph Steadman, the artist that did the artwork for Hunter S. Thompson, and did a frequent collaborator with him, was like an early inspiration for me for a lot of the artwork that I did. So, you know, that's kind of just the short of it when it comes to my experience with this movie. We'll go into more details over my actual thoughts in as far as the movie goes, but that's my experience with Terry Gilliam, and as far as my experience with the recent viewing of this motion picture, to say the
How about
least.
you, Jim?
First time watching this movie, I've been aware of the backcountry reference in pop culture for a long time. Um, Never watched it though. Like I don't know. I've experimented a little bit with the Schedule One substances, but this this was like something else entirely. Like um, I want to be if I'm on a trip, I want to be like in the mountains, close to the stars and away from people. It was totally insane to me that this guy was like just walking around Las Vegas. No big deal, just out of his mind. I was like, that doesn't look like a good time. So I'm interested what you guys have to say about his kind of philosophy and his worldview. Like, why, just why, you know? I agree that the synopsis you read, Shane, is probably as good as you're going to give in a few words. Escapades, much better word than adventures. Escapades is a great. That's a very descriptive word.
Shenanigans, even
for this movie. Yeah, yeah, right. Terry Gilliam. I was just looking at his directorial filmography. I've seen Dr. Parnassus, which I would watch again. I've only seen it the one time. Phone is on the fritz. I've only seen it the one time, but I saw Brothers Grimm. I thought that was kind of forgettable. And
where he sold out.
There was another one, and the Monty Python movies, Life of Brian and Holy Grail. I think, although he didn't direct, correct? Right? He was involved in those movies. But
he co-directed Holy Grail with Terry Jones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, and he directed basically all the animation in Monty Python, because that was him.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the only American in the troupe. So, which is very interesting.
I thought he was British. Oh shoot. Okay. Terry Gilliam was American. Noted.
Born in England, but then really settled in America, and then went back.
Okay.
But he was mostly American his whole life.
As far as the movie goes,
Joe, he was born near Medicine Lake, Minnesota.
Okay, that's what it was, and then moved to England to do the work with Monty Python,
which is where he got into the troupe.
Yeah,
the flying circus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like there's something to be said, but I don't know what it is. So there's like the Vietnam War is on the TV.
The best review for this movie. Jim, you hit the nail on the head. I feel like it's saying something, but I don't know what it is. I'll go more into that too. That's perfect.
It shares that with Lebowski. It's kind of a movie about who knows, but there's a backdrop that I think is important. So yeah, I don't know. Shane.
So I have seen every single one of Terry Gilliam's feature films. He's one of my 10 favorite directors. And I just don't like this movie. Because I absolutely love his Monty Python work. I have a lot of fun with Jabberwocky. I'm a humongous fan of Time Bandits and Brazil and Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Fisher King, absolutely love that movie. 12 Monkeys is one of my favorite films. It just, there's so much of his work that I love, and I just don't understand the purpose of this movie. Like, Jim, where you said that I feel like this is saying something, but I don't know what it is. My feeling was, I know this movie's trying to say things, and I don't care. Like, that's how I felt after a while. And it's one of those kinds of things, and it's so interesting because one, I know the backcountry stuff from Avenged Sevenfold. First off, because they literally made a song about backcountry, and this is my third time watching this movie. And I have more experience watching these guys in Rango than I do actually watching this movie, seeing as the opening sequence of Rango has the car and all three of them driving in it in the desert, which is the most random.
Like, you got Dr. Gonzo in the background, just chilling out, getting high.
Random, most random cameos along with him and them in the Spirit of the West, aka Clint Eastwood, voiced by Timothy Oliphant. In that movie, that I love Rango, and this is just the weirdest meta thing to do, especially because basically Rango dresses up as Hunter S. Thompson at the beginning of that movie. But this movie, I could take a step back and realize there are things that really work about this film. One, Johnny Depp, I think, is going completely committed to this bit. And I would be a liar if I didn't say that I enjoyed watching him on screen, just how bonkers he was. I have a side note about my brother Ethan's experience with this movie. He hates Benicio del Toro to this day because how disgusting and gross he is in this movie. Like he can't even separate at this point, which accurate because he is completely committed to this bit, which is so weird having just watched the Phoenician scheme and him like he's a rogue, but like he's a classy man. And here he's just an absolutely disgusting whatever. And Toby Maguire as that hitchhiker is hilarious with the bald cap and the stringy hair. It is just like what's even going on here? I love the commitment to the bit of all the visuals, like the lizard people, that whole like the just practical effects and the costumes of that sequence. Like I can't deny the technical prowess that went into making this movie because it's Terry Gilliam. And if anybody was going to make this, he makes a lot of sense to be the one to bring this to life. I just the my feelings in general in the film are summed up on when I was watching this on Max, I checked how far into the movie it was because it felt like we were 2 hours in and it was should have been ending, but it was 45 minutes in. And I turned to my wife Jess and we're just like, there's an hour and 15 minutes more of this shit.
I imagine it was the moment he left Vegas, and you're like, okay, the movie should just wrap up around now, right?
I'm just because like this is a hard watch for 2 hours. Like the I felt like once I reached the 45 minutes, that was my limit. I'm like, I feel like I got everything I needed to out of this experience. And to be frank, I didn't really care about his world perspective. I didn't really care about him. I was just having a fun time watching Johnny Depp throw himself around completely drugged out. Like the carousel thing with them trying to get off the carousel diner. It's just like the slapstick of it I appreciated, but like there's just I could watch scenes of this again and appreciate it. I don't. I put this up with The Room, not in terms of like quality, but like I never want to watch this whole movie again.
Wow.
Kind of thing.
I
Despite the fact that people keep trying to get me to watch The Room. I'll
I would
watch my
say
clip show on YouTube. That's a bit. But go ahead, Joe.
I would say I differ on that actually. In
Mhm.
fact, this movie made me interested to read more of Hunter S. Thompson's work,
Good
and I'll
for
tell you
you,
why.
Joe.
I'll tell you why. Trust me. I'll tell you why. Because reading up on Hunter S. Thompson and reading up on his work, he's actually very coherent with what he writes. Prior to this book, there was, and this is the reason why Dr. Gonzo, or in real life, Oscar, I forgot his last name, but he was a prominent Mexican American advocate and an actual lawyer during a lot of riots in the late 60s. And there was a specific murder as a result of police brutality and a riot of a prominent Mexican American columnist that Hunter S. Thompson reported. And his style of journalism is kind of like guerrilla based, where he's like
Yeah.
going undercover. Like most of his interactions with Oscar or Dr. Gonzo was actually undercover. Like he was getting to know him. And I think they became such good friends because of it that they did a whole bunch of drugs and went on to do this trip to Vegas. And that's where, this story eventually came out. I find that really fascinating because to me, Johnny Depp's performance works because he did the same thing Hunter S. Thompson would do, which is go undercover. He basically lived and eventually became friends with Hunter S. Thompson in the same way Hunter S. Thompson became friends with this Oscar, with this lawyer, who is, by all accounts, super stoned a majority of the time from what was reported. And something I found also really interesting as far as visual style, because I agree with you, Shane, Terry Gilliam is literally the only person. Maybe even someone like
Can you imagine if it was a David Lynch movie?
David Lynch. Oh wow, David Lynch could do really well. I was gonna say Guillermo del Toro. I think that would be interesting. But anyways, I I noticed there was a particular symbolism with water, and I want to read the book to make sure it is mentioned in there. But knowing Terry Gilliam, when it comes to like subtle visual cues, he's pretty tight with that. So the real life figure based on Dr. Gonzo died and disappeared, and his last known appearance was on a boat. Um, and there was, according to his son, drugs on that boat and a lot of cocaine. So in the movie, whenever you see him in the tub, or like that other scene where they go into the Flamingo and that second hotel and it's all flooded with water, to me, I wonder if that's a subtle reference to his eventual fate. Like even that whole um suicidal suicidal sequence of him wanting to get electrocuted during the Jefferson Airplane song White Rabbit was it was really, I didn't say it was really tense. I mean, yeah, it got me on edge a little bit. I mean, anytime Benicio del Toro was on screen, I was just very tense. But that particular scene really like, ugh.
He's really unpredictable, that
Oh yeah,
character. You
Yep.
don't know if you're going to get aggressive knife wielding Dr. Gonzo, or if you're going to get. He was kind and compassionate sometimes, even in his dealings with that underage girl who was
Mhm.
played by
Christina
somebody
Ricci.
famous. Yeah, it's Christina Ricci. Cameron Diaz in this movie too. Like so many,
Yeah, for a brief
Right.
everybody
cameo.
was in this movie. Even he would like. There was a Jekyll and Hyde thing going on with Dr. Gonzo for sure. So I get what you're saying about being like uncomfortable when he was on screen.
Oh yeah.
Um, what was the last scene we see him in? Is it when he gets on the plane?
Yeah.
Or is it?
Yeah.
Okay. And I was curious about this. Hunter S. Thompson kind of gets a little poetic and in his feelings about Dr. Gonzo, and he's very clear about how he respects this man. So like what again, why? Like is it because he's willing to put himself in this position where he's completely out of control and just see what happens? Or like I don't understand why he respects him so much, you know?
If I go as far as to say, I think a lot of it is the context of the murder of the riots, but it wasn't mentioned in the movie because this
Right.
is based on his writings,
Mhm.
which were so drugged out and so stream of consciousness that it was hard to piece together. But from like this is the problem with the movie, and this is sometimes a problem I have with, say like my worst example is the best example is the Snyder cut of his movies, right? If the movies would have been good, they would have been good as the final product. Don't make it about studio interference. Don't make it about drama. Don't make it about everything else. It's got to be the final product. It makes an interesting story, kind of like we're talking about right now. It makes a very fascinating story. But I also think that's also why the context that's missing is the fact that, you know, this was around the time of civil rights and around the time, like I'm reading this article that he wrote called Strangeness in Atslin, where he talks about how the media would, even I said Mexican American, when in the barrio, in the area, they would prefer Chicano. And that when you use Mexican American as a phrase, like Hunter S. Thompson was describing racial dynamics when it comes to the media compared to what the people in the neighborhood were actually saying. So I think there was a lot of bondness that came from that. Like, and to a certain degree, I forgot to mention this too, but they actually referred to Dr. Gonzo in real life as being the brown buffalo. There was another movie that came out with Bill Murray playing Hunter S. Thompson called When the Buffalo Roams that actually focuses more on the dynamic of the real life people, Dr. Gonzo and Hunter S. Thompson, excuse me.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of experience with Hunter S. Thompson except for him being a character in the Venture Brothers.
I didn't
Which
know
like
about that actually. That's crazy.
yes. And that character's wild and does some crazy stuff. But like this is my experience of this was like babysitting your intoxicated friends. And I have experience doing that. And as somebody who has never drank alcohol before in their life, I'm not a fan of being around high or intoxicated people. And it's just like I mentioned, I can appreciate this. And like, would I find it interesting to actually look up some of his other writings and those kinds of things? Sure. But like separating that from like this story, this film, like it's a whole bunch of just randomness and like people getting up to shenanigans because they're high, too high to function. And like, sure, there's like some humor about it, but it felt really repetitive to me after a while. I'm just like, why are we going through these motions again? And I'm assuming he did because if you're drugged out of your mind, you're probably going to keep getting in loops and doing random stuff. I don't know. It just doesn't mean it's going to be a engaging cinematic experience. But I will say, because I know you both brought up some of the familiar faces that popped up in this, because Penn Jillette's in here as a
Oh yeah,
as
Yes,
a
right.
carny.
yes.
Vern
It's
Troyer
Carnival.
is a wee waiter. Debbie Reynolds. Debbie Reynolds. Flea is in there. Gary Busey as that highway patrolman was
Right.
one of the like, what is going on here? Like kinds of moments, and like Christopher Maloney. Because was this before Law and Order
Oh yeah.
SVU
Maloney was
started
so young in this. Yeah.
as the
With hair.
flamboyant clerk at the Flamingo,
Yeah.
getting in fights with angry police officers? Like, and Harry Dean Stanton's in there, Michael Jeter's in there. There's an insane amount of famous people in this movie. And this coming in and out, it feels like a fever dream. And like if you're in a mood for a wild fever dream, this is it. It's creative, it's ambitious. Um, but it's something that I appreciate way more than I actually felt engaged and enjoyed from that perspective. But like I said, I would be interested to read this to see just how wild of an experience it is reading this book, and maybe getting some more context on actual Hunter S. Thompson, not the Venture Brothers Hunter S. Thompson that I'm familiar with. Because between this movie and that and Rango, that's the only bearing I have about who Hunter S. Thompson is. So there you go.
There's a
I have two questions.
sure.
Sorry, Joe.
That's okay.
You seem to know the answer. I thought Depp and Thompson were friends before he was cast, but from what you said earlier, it seems like they became friends
That's what
later.
I was yeah, that's what I was reading. I think that's actually what ended up happening. I could be wrong
Interesting.
because I did some research after doing it because I was under the impression that it was that he was friends with him before the movie, but
Yeah, right.
and I think and I was under the impression that Hunter S. Thompson recommended that he would be played, but I think this was actually Depp finding out more about him, doing research and being a fan of him, and then getting to live with him, and eventually becoming friends during the making of this movie.
Interesting. Oh, who was Flea? Who did Flea play
He
in
was
the
in the he was in the pro
film?
he was in the San Francisco bar. He was the one that was throwing up or in the bathroom, and the guy the walked in on him and Depp.
Yeah, in between my just like, what the hell's going on here? I'm like, what is? Oh, wait a minute! And it's like, look who that is. Because that was a
Uh,
pretty common experience for me watching this movie. It was like, oh, look who that, and like even like smaller stuff like Mark Harmon popped up in here. Catherine Hellman, who's been in multiple Gilliam films, especially Brazil, she popped up in here. it's fascinating, just this wild, like, I'll give it credit for creating an absolutely wild, surreal version of Las Vegas. Because, like, obviously, there's so many versions of Las Vegas in media, whether it's television or film, and you get, like, I feel like the two polar opposites is this and like the Oceans movies, where it's just like, this is the coolest place. And then this is like,
This is
what
what Vegas
is
is actually like.
what is this hellscape that I'm in? So
Like when I went to Vegas with my dad, with my family for a business trip, there was definitely that sickness. Like it's artificial because it's in the middle of the desert. Everything outside of Vegas is literally a desert. It's literally like what you imagine like New Mexico or Arizona being like, and then it's just this artificial nightclub of feeding on everything you see in New York and at 2 a.m. at night times 10. You know, but I was just double checking too because it did say now the timeline of it. It does seem like Hunter S. Thompson just met with Depp. I think either in the making of this movie, or if it was Depp that met him. That's interesting. Yeah,
I'd be curious to know what Gilliam really wanted to do as far as, like, obviously it's not a documentary,
right.
and Hunter S. Thompson's still alive.
And
So
he's in the movie.
wait, is he really?
So in the scene where he's in that, he's reminiscing about that club in San Francisco, and he says, "That's me. That's me. That's him. That's Hunter S. Thompson."
Oh my God.
that he's
Okay.
looking at.
That's great. No, that's funny. I wish I'd known the cameo was coming before I that's worth going back for. But like I guess what I was trying to say is at what, like, the legend's constantly growing. So at was it a snapshot of Hunter S. Thompson as a living legend in what year was this made?
98, 97.
yeah,
Somewhere around there. Yeah, I'd be curious how Gilliam wanted to portray Hunter S. Thompson and what he wanted us to take away about the man, the myth, the legend. Yeah. Joe, did you get to say what you wanted to say a minute ago?
Oh no, I think I did. That was pretty much everything. I mean, there's probably more of them to talk about. I'm feeling the craziness. I promise you, I for the sake because I know this might be posted on YouTube. I have not indulged in any substances. I'll just Diet Coke.
I have this is me sober all the time. I have all this natural energy. But I guess, do either of you have anything else that you wanted to add about Fear and Loathing?
So what I wasn't sure about. I thought that Benicio del Toro was wearing a fat suit throughout this movie, but it actually turns out that he gained 45 pounds
Damn.
for this role.
He made himself look pretty disgusting
He did.
in this. Like, he fully committed to making him absolutely disgusting.
And the
Yeah, I
interest
was reminded of like Peter Grant of Led Zeppelin's manager, just like overweight and dripping in like medallions and I don't know, wearing too little clothing. Go ahead,
consulting
Joe.
with minors.
Yeah.
And that scene in itself was just very disturbing, you know.
Because, like, I'm looking real quick to see kind of the context of Benicio del Toro's career at this point, because, like, I know a few years before this he had The Usual Suspects, and I know he was a henchman in License to Kill, the Bond movie, in the late 80s, but, like, I feel like this was before, like, he had Snatch and Traffic and 21 Grams and Sin City, like, stuff that, like, he started becoming really popular. But, like, it's so interesting because he fully commits to this. And that's the thing. So Johnny Depp. Like, Johnny Depp has, I will never question that man fully committing to a role, because he surely does. he had the vibes, he had the energy, and it's not like he made himself look great either. It's like, he has like the balding, like the bald head and everything. Um, but I think at the end of the day, this is one of those kind of cinematic experiences that I think is at least worth having once and being able to appreciate, because like this has, you can, if you've seen any of Terry Gilliam's work, you cannot question that this is not one of his films, because how the cinematography is, everything feels dreamlike in his movies. All the camera work is exaggerated, fisheye lenses, obnoxious like close-ups of people, and where it's just like you feel so uncomfortable with everything going on. And you know what, maybe it worked too well for me to, because like after, I'm just like, yeah, this is a lot. I'm experiencing great discomfort watching this movie, and if that's exactly what it wanted to do, I'm pretty sure it accomplished it. I do appreciate IMDb's attempts at trying to label this, because like all the genres it has is dark comedy, desert adventure, psychological drama, road trip, stoner comedy, urban adventure, adventure comedy, drama,
Oof.
which is like, it's a Terry Gilliam movie on
What did
acid.
it was buddy stoner road trip comedy? Is that a genre?
Well, road trip as stoner comedies are, this I guess is like Fever Dream, Cheech and Chong, basically
Yeah,
what we got
or
out of
Harold and Kumar.
this.
No White Castle in Vegas though. I'm with you, Shane, that I would read some of his work, and I'm curious as to whether he like came to some realizations or profound insights through his drug abuse, or if it was more of just a lifestyle choice for for reasons I don't understand. But I would, I was reminded of Naked Lunch. I started watching the movie of Naked Lunch. Uh, didn't last very long. That's probably trippier than this one is.
It's
Read Naked
weirder.
Lunch, didn't love it. Right. And I confuse William S. Burroughs and Hunter S. Thompson all the time. I think I said this in the group chat like a while ago. I confuse them a lot. And I haven't read as much Thompson as I have Burroughs, who's probably certifiably insane when he wrote, most of what he wrote. So
What's his name again?
curious at least.
Author's name?
William S. Burroughs,
Okay.
Naked Lunch. I heard he locked him away in a Moroccan hotel room with a bunch of drugs, suitcase full of drugs, if you will, and pounded out Naked Lunch over like a weekend or something. But the dude was, I don't know, the acid took its toll on Burroughs for sure.
He also had what, Queer, that came out last year, that Luca Guadagnino directed, was based off of one of William S. Burroughs
Okay.
novels too. And that had Daniel Craig in it, and
Hmm.
Jason Schwartzman. Yeah, I don't want to be in the same room when Hunter S. Thompson and William S. Burroughs hang out and do their thing. But this was going into this, I'm like, because usually I have a lot to say about a lot of the films that we talk about on here. This is probably one of the times where I'm like, you know what? I don't have that much to say about this, but it is a unique experience and worth at least trying out once. And it has to be at least significant. It has a Criterion Collection release, which that cover on that is wild. I don't know
I
if
think
you've
it's the
seen it.
original book, one of the original book covers.
Oh,
Interesting.
really?
Very interesting.
That's
But
the artwork from Ralph Steadman.
yeah. Do we have anything else to add about this trippy, drugged out fever dream?
One last thing that I thought was interesting, and when watching the movie and reading more about it, in the movie, Hunter S. Thompson keeps referring to Dr. Gonzo as Samoan, and
Yes.
Yeah, right.
and the reason why was actually because he wanted to protect his identity and not say that he was Hispanic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I wonder, and again, if I do revisit this film again, I wonder if there is context to whether or not there is discrimination against Dr. Gonzo versus Hunter S. Thompson. Because the more and more I think about it, both of these characters are insane, right? Identifiably insane. But which one
Yeah.
seems to get away with it more? Hunter S. Thompson or Dr. Gonzo?
Well, I appreciate you bringing up that note because I just wrote it off as casual racism. Um, him just calling him Samoan the whole entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Where he obviously was not Samoan.
Yeah.
But,
No, it was an interesting fact I was read about that because apparently he was like this really big activist.
racially ambiguous, Dr. Gonzo. So there you go. Well, this was an interesting one for. I think this is probably the most unique and strange of the movies that we've talked about on the movie club. And I know next month we're going into a completely different direction as we're going to be watching a documentary from Jonathan Demme, Cousin Bobby, which is about a priest, actually. So it's our first documentary, too. So shaking things
Oh,
up a
cool.
little bit on here as well. But coming to you, and with the movie club, it was Hunter S. Thompson, Jim, and Shane. So thank you all for tuning in and always supporting the Development Hell podcast.